Hey.
This is Two Girls, One Ghost.
Two Girls, One Ghost. And we are your ghostesses. That is Corinne.
Hello.
And I am Sabrina. And this is a long awaited for episode for me, selfishly.
Yeah, because I've been keeping things from you.
You have.
This is going to be a little different from a lot of our other episodes because traditionally we research haunted places, but a couple times we've done kind of specials where we cover all of the hauntings that we have had throughout our lives. And this is kind of going to be something similar to that because while I was on maternity leave, a lot happened to both of us.
Yes.
And we weren't sharing it with each other.
No, we were not because we were banking it for the podcast.
Yeah. And also I wasn't talking to anyone because I was trying to survive. So
we talked occasionally and I tried really hard to not talk to you about any work stuff so that you didn't have anything else to think about. Same.
Yeah. So this is going to be packed with personal ghost stories, this episode. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about, I guess,
being a mom,
birth.
Yeah.
And things
having
like that.
A child.
Yeah. Things that people on Campfire Stories have heard bits and pieces of, but I'll share more here.
Sometimes you don't have to go very far to find a haunted place. Sometimes you live in a haunted place.
It's right here, which is so crazy. I'm like,
where recording?
Where do we begin?
Should we begin with giving birth? Or I guess,
sure, I guess.
What was your first haunting? Actually, okay. We'll go back a little bit because when we were recording in April, you had some hauntings happen in the house that were really small.
Right. They felt small in the moment, but now because of some of the things that have happened since then, I'm like, was I ignoring potentially a bigger sign?
Probably.
And so a few of those things, I can't even remember everything, but like one of the things that happened was we heard a loud crash basically at 6 a.m. and we came down and two different curtain rods had been ripped out of their socket and the socket was pointing up. So it was like a 45-degree angle up. So in order to get the curtain rod off of the socket, you would have had to lift it up and they were like basically torn off. And there were two of them separate that were bent. And I can't even remember any of the other things. There were totally some other things.
Wasn't that when you were trying to sleep in and you had snoozed your alarm and then you heard the loud crash? So it was almost like a wake up.
It was a wake up.
No sleeping in.
And this was also when we had a ton of projects happening around the house because we bought a house that the people who owned it perfectly timed their move. They lived here for 20 some years. And the second they left, everything broke. Everything was on like a 20-year cycle. So we had to fix everything. So we were kind of ripping things down and disturbing the house. And so we were curious, like, oh, are we disrupting previous tenants? But there were only, like, we know the people who had lived here. And so far, everybody is still alive. Well, I don't know that. But if they are alive, they're very old. And people do remember them.
Right.
And there was nothing horrible that happened.
Sure. But living people can leave behind energy, residual hauntings of a sort, and the land holds a lot of history beyond this house being here.
Yeah, that is very true.
Didn't Brian see like a shadow in the kitchen or something?
I literally can't remember. I have no idea. That doesn't ring a bell.
Okay. All right. Well, we have plenty of new ones to talk about.
Brian is a skeptic. He doesn't like to hear. Well, skeptic's not the right word. He's scared. He doesn't want to hear about it because he's scared of it. But I did write down not even everything, but I wrote down a bunch of things because I was like, I'm going to forget because I forget everything now. So I need to remember what happened. Okay. We're starting before I give birth, actually.
There we go. That's what we're doing.
So it's a few weeks before my due date and my feet were so swollen. I had to go in and get the NSTs like twice a week because I was so swollen that they thought that something was wrong. And so they were constantly checking me and the baby Noah. And so with my swollen feet, bless Brian and his sweet little soul, he decided to book me at the super spiritual place he found in the North Shore. It is a salt cave situation. They have massages there, but they also have foot soaks. So he's like, this is something you can do while you're pregnant because I had terrible acid reflux. I couldn't go get massages. Like everything was horrible. I couldn't move. I gained a shit ton of weight. So he booked me. Proudly. Yeah. I still think about it. I'm still holding on to some of it. I can't let it go. But so he booked me the foot soak. So I go to this foot soak and already it's kind of like a woo magical place, right?
Love it.
We love this place.
Yeah.
And the owner is there and she's the one that's setting up my my foot soak. There's one other person who's helping her who I think is starting to work there. So she's almost like in training.
Okay.
And then there's a third woman who is also there for a foot soak, clearly knows the other two women. They're all kind of communing together. I'm super fucking pregnant. So they're asking me questions about just my pregnancy and telling me stories of their kids. And we were just all kind of chatting together. The other woman who's getting the foot soak in the past like decade has basically had this spiritual awakening. She does past life regression. She does all of this amazing stuff.
Whoa.
And she helps people who
like she does her own past life regressions, or she
does it
readings
with other people. She just suddenly kind of like opened up and absorbed all this stuff.
That's
and
so
can
cool.
tell things. Yeah. And so she's worked a lot with people who've dealt with like anxiety or drug addictions and like different things like that. And she told me some really interesting stories. And there was one story where she was like, text me if you want more information. I can text the guy and see if he's willing to tell you. So I need to do that. But she worked with someone who suffered from an alien abduction, many of them, and worked through it with past life regression. So I was like, oh my God, this is fucking cool.
So it sounds like his alien abduction may have not been a pleasant one.
No. He
not a good experience.
Seriously help him. Yikes. So I'm in this place and I'm talking to all these cool women, and then the owner is like, oh yeah, this place is haunted. And she said that
this is amazing.
Yeah.
What is this place? What's it called?
Oh, let me look it up. It's in Hamilton, Spirit Tree Wellness. That is what it's called. Hopefully they don't get mad at me for talking about this.
We'll recommend them.
Yeah. Okay. Spirit Tree Wellness. It was a magical experience. And I have gone back for a massage that was amazing too. But we're all talking and she says this place is haunted, that she feels that there's this kind of like, she notices like a presence in the corner, this one specific corner, kind of like dart around. And she's never really known who it was. But she said a while back after she'd opened this place, someone came rushing in and was like, oh my God. It was like their uncle or something used to work here. He used to own this place. He would sit in that corner at his sewing machine all day. And that's the exact same corner that she said she always saw someone like out of the corner of her eye right there.
Oh, it's his spot.
So it's his spot. And then
that's a good haunting.
It's a good haunting. I'm about to leave, and the woman that does past life regression is like, is it inappropriate of me to ask if I can do Reiki on you? And I was like, no,
Shut up.
So she does Reiki on my stomach, and she's like, do you feel anything? And I was like, no. And then a few seconds later, Noah starts like, boom, 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 going crazy. And then at the time, Brian and I had decided Noah's name, but we didn't tell anyone his name. Which is not like,
no.
It's literally the most common name. Like if you look at most common boy names, Noah is number one. But we just didn't tell people because
that's common. A lot of people don't do that.
Yeah. And
even my sister
we were advised by
some
parents in our family too to just like not share because everyone has a comment about it. And so they're like, even if it's like the most basic name, like someone's going to have something to say about the name Chris. So it's like, okay.
I just don't want to hear it. Yeah.
Right. So we hadn't told anyone. And the three women are standing there in front of me and I'm checked out and I'm about to leave. And they said, did you pick out a name yet? And I was like, I didn't want to say yes, but I'm not telling you. So I was like, oh, well, we're between a few. So we haven't fully committed, but we have some options. One of them says the name Noah. And then the other woman says, I don't want to say the names because I don't like publicly share Noah's middle name, but she said two names and it was one of them. So between the three names, they got his first name and middle name.
That's wild.
Like 2 weeks before I was due.
So this is a very spiritual place.
Very spiritual. Spirit Tree Wellness.
There we go. Wow.
Yeah. I know. So I was like, what a cool way
to
kind of like
cool
intro
experience.
in. Yeah.
That's such a positive experience.
Positive.
And I'm nervous because you've hinted that the other things
it gets so much worse. Once Noah arrived, it got worse.
Oh gosh.
So we'll fast forward. I go into labor 6 days before my due date. Naturally, I just like wake up, have contractions. I text Sierra from Ladies and Tangents because she's on vacation with her mother-in-law who was a labor and delivery nurse. And I was like, am I in labor? Like, what is this? Yes. And she was listening to me and she was like, oh yeah, I think maybe you are. You should probably call your doctor. So I called my doctor. They're like, go into the hospital. I go into the hospital. They're like, oh, your contractions are 5 minutes apart, but you're not dilated. Go home. So I drive home. And this is in rush hour traffic too, of course. Also, Brian was at work that day, so I just didn't tell him until like I felt like he actually needed to leave work. But
I love
did
that
the classic,
I have
like,
your
back and
location.
forth.
So like that whole week, because you had told me you were going to the hospital. And then you said they sent me home.
Yeah.
And so after that, I was like checking your location like crazy.
It's so funny because our friend Jordan also just FaceTimed me because she was like FaceTiming me randomly throughout the pregnancy. And she FaceTimed me and I answered in the hospital and she was like, oh my God. She's like, I was calling to see how you were doing the week up to your, like leading up to your due date. But yeah, so ended up getting sent home, went back 90 minutes later, had to battle more traffic because it was still rush hour traffic, la-di-da, whatever. They let me in because I started to get a little dilated. And then things kind of went mostly smoothly. My water broke naturally at 5 a.m. I labored like in the night, which sucked for my mom and Brian because they were attempting to sleep in preparation. And I joked with my mom because she was like, I couldn't sleep at all. And I was like, how could you? There was a ghost haunting your hospital room. Because the whole time I walked around going, ooh, ooh. It was so painful.
Well, wasn't the hospital actually haunted?
Okay, yes. So ended up having to have an emergency C-section because as Noah was coming down, he got tangled up in the umbilical cord. They threw me around for like 4 hours back and forth. And because at that point I got the epidural, which if you're pregnant, don't listen to this part. It hurts. It hurts a lot.
Everyone says that it hurts.
Everyone says it hurts for a minute. They're like, it's a bee sting for a minute.
They literally
it's
put
like
it into your
30
spine.
minutes.
Yeah, until it kicks in, right?
I don't know. Maybe something just went wrong with putting it in me because I was sitting there for a while and they were working on me and it really hurt. But I guess the plus side was I was really close in contractions at that point. So I was just,
you're in pain with everything. Yeah.
Regardless. But yeah, he got wrapped up, had an emergency C-section.
Did you see your guts?
No. But this is one of the horrifying things about pregnancy is I don't know what I thought a C-section was, but I didn't want to think much about it. Mm-hmm. Also, I had multiple panic attacks during it and they kept being like, oh, it's just the drugs. Oh, it's just your adrenaline. And I was like, no, I know when I'm having a panic attack.
Right.
And one of the times was on the table.
Right, because you're awake, but your whole body is.
You're completely awake.
No,
It actually only takes like 5 minutes. From the time you're wheeled in to the baby coming out, it's 5 minutes, but then it takes 45 minutes for them to get everything.
Put you back together?
Put you back together. And they also make you lay with your arms out like you're Jesus on the cross. And I was like,
do they have a sheet like in front of you like this?
Yes, they asked if we didn't want the sheet. And I said, absolutely not. Put the sheet up. And then they said, do you want to see the baby when he comes out? And I said, no, you have to stitch me up first. They didn't listen. They showed us Noah. But like, it was also so weird too, because you have this baby in you that you've never seen. And then when they show you the baby, as soon as he started crying, that's, I think, when our hearts kind of went like, oh.
Yeah.
But for the few seconds before he started crying, when they just showed him to us, I looked at him and I was like, who is that? Like,
who is a stranger?
Yes, literally.
But seriously, yeah, it probably does take a second. Because you spend so much time with him imagining the moment of birth,
and I didn't even hold him for that long when they were stitching me up because they put him on my chest, but I was shaking so badly that I'm like, I had to have Brian hold him.
Yeah.
But it was, it's scary because we're like holding each other, like me and Brian. It was terrifying.
And he's so tiny.
He's so tiny.
Yeah.
And also, I didn't know this, that when you have a C-section, like the benefit of them going through the birth canals, they get squeezed and so all of the liquid and stuff comes out of them. Yeah. So that night in the hospital was so scary. Twice he like choked on all of the liquid coming out. Oh my God, it was terrifying.
Yeah.
But with the C-section thing, I didn't really think much about it. And then I was telling one of my friends, Emma, I was like, oh my God, it's the weirdest feeling. Like you really can feel everything that's happening. I was like, it feels like this. Like it feels like someone's like ripping you this far and like they're like, I was like, you feel it like 3 feet out from your body. It's the weirdest sensation. She goes, oh yeah, when they're taking your organs out and putting them on the table. I was like, come again?
Yeah.
I didn't think
you didn't even know that.
I don't know. I thought they just kind of shoved them on the inside on you and then reached for the baby. I did not know that the pulling sensation that I was feeling was them literally removing my organs.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Gross.
I was so scared though.
It's good that you had the sheet because if you had seen that, you would have passed out.
Yeah. I will never, sorry to anyone who's planning a C-section, I will never plan one. If I have to have one again, I'm going to probably faint. I think. Now knowing some of the stuff.
Knowing what it is, yeah.
Yeah.
Even though you've already experienced it.
Even though I've already experienced it. Yeah, but now I know.
It's worse.
Now I know my organs are coming out. Oh my God, I can't. I was so scared too because obviously it was like kind of an emergency. So I didn't have much time to think and they were wheeling me in. And I told one of the nurses, Nicole, I was like, I don't want to hear a single thing you guys are saying. I don't want to hear a single tool. I don't want anyone to talk to me. I need you to play my music in my ear the loudest it can possibly go, like deafen me.
So what song was playing when you gave birth to Noah?
It was Shania Twain. I can't remember the exact song.
But I like that Shania Twain.
It was Shania Twain. But
not ABBA?
No, but ABBA was on the list. It was like all Chapel Roan, Noah Kahan, Hosier. But she puts on my music. Like she grabs my phone. I give her the code. And then she goes, I just opened Spotify and you have a playlist called Literally Giving Birth. So that's what I'm putting on. I said, great. That's what it's for. But fast forward, we're in the hospital.
So Noah was born on May 11th at
June 11th.
June
6'11" at 6 pounds, 11 ounces. 6'11", 6'11".
And was it 1 p.m.?
It was 12:45.
Okay.
Too bad it was emergency. Maybe I could have been like, actually, can you whip him out? Well, I couldn't.
No,
I wouldn't have known that he was going to be 6 pounds, 11 ounces. So we're in the hospital. We stayed for 4 days because I was struggling with the C-section recovery and did for many, many weeks.
Yeah.
But some of the nurses are so helpful. Some of them not so much.
Yeah.
But there's this one nurse who was extremely helpful. And I won't say her name because she asked me to not expose what hospital was or any of this information. But she's helping me and Brian a ton. And I'm also, by the way, like I've seen other people in their hospital photos and I've talked to other moms. Did you know that people put clothes on while they're in the hospital? I was naked for 4 days.
Did you have like a hospital gown?
They gave me one. I turned it around. I was tits out the whole time. I had the back
Well, that
and the
makes
front.
sense because you're breastfeeding and like doing all of that. Why wouldn't you make it easier for you?
And with babies too, when they're like, oh, your baby needs to eat every like 45 minutes or every 90 minutes. Okay, well, 90 minutes comes and then they eat for 45 minutes. And then by the time you're done with that, they sleep for 15 minutes and then they're up again. So like why would you?
Right.
Yeah. So I was naked the whole time. It didn't matter who was in. Maintenance came in.
You were honestly,
food delivery services.
It makes me mad every time I see, and you're included, I'm mad at you. Every time I see a photo of a woman who had just given birth and is like no makeup, literally fresh out of pushing and going through labor, not sleeping, you were glowing.
It's sweat. It's actually sweat.
But you looked beautiful.
Well, thanks.
But
I was
you're
like dripping sweat because they pump you with so much in the IV fluid. So I couldn't stop
You
sweating.
were stunning.
Well, thank you.
And you are stunning.
And I was so pumped with the IV fluid that I actually couldn't walk for 2 days. And Brian they like want you to get out of your hospital bed, but I couldn't because my legs were so swollen that I couldn't bend them at the knee. So Brian had to come and lift my legs out every time I had to pee and pull my legs to the side and then yank me up like a little freaking straight plank board so that I could hobble over to the bathroom.
You know what's one benefit that you didn't have to experience because you did a C-section is the first poop after giving birth. Well, that's my biggest fear.
Yeah. Well, they still want you to poop, but I didn't have to deal with the tearing.
As painful. Yeah.
Which also, that poor nurse, because they were like, they asked you, like, did you poop? And I didn't know what I was supposed to do. So I showed her. I said, yes, I did.
With your hand? You picked it up?
Well, I wiped and then I was like, here you go.
Oh,
if you need proof for your notes. I don't know. So anyway, that was the type of behavior I was. I was like, here's everything. I already know that there's 40 people who've seen my vagina at this point. Mm-hmm. And this one nurse was extremely helpful. She, after helping us for like 3 days, suddenly goes, oh my God, you're Corinne from Two Girls, One Ghost. And I was like, what? And she was like, I finally put it together. I listened to your podcast. Your doctor said, did you know that she has a spooky podcast? And I just now put it together.
No way.
Yeah. And she had so many stories.
So one of our listeners has seen your vagina?
She's seen everything.
I haven't even seen it.
She told me with my boobs out. I was standing there.
She's seen more of you than I have.
She's seen it all. She's seen me at my worst. But she told me so many stories of her own because it comes from like a very psychic sort of family. Cool. But I don't think she advertises this much at work.
Right.
And the hospital that I delivered at, which I also won't say the name of, they have a ghost in the maternity ward. And they believe that it is the spirit of a nurse who used to work there because there's one specific room where the call light will continue to go off. Uh-huh. And it will go off even when someone is in the room. So like
Interesting.
it goes off when no one is in that room, but
So
it
both.
also, they have multiple like couples and moms and stuff being like, the call light just
keeps going off.
Like keeps going off and I never pressed it.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of their little hospital haunting.
I like that it's a nurse.
Yeah.
Seems sweet.
Yeah. I feel like most hospitals it is. Well, I guess maybe it could be patients, but I feel like
Yeah.
a lot of the stories we've heard and covered, it's a lot of suspected nurses.
We did have that one where it was like a children's cancer wing, remember? And there was like a little ghost girl who saved a life.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Chills
I know.
thinking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So special. So anyway, we get home, new baby, new energy. House has a different presence to react to. And it did. So
It did.
I did write down the other thing that had happened. Remember, I was like, previously there was the beams or the curtain rods that got ripped down. The other one was when I was standing in here, dirt materialized and fell from the air and hit me.
And we talked about our ghost worm.
Yeah. And we have no idea why there was dirt that hit me, which you're like, that's so random. But now I'm starting to think, could that be demonic? It seems like there were two kind of
not
really rough things. Maybe like week 2 of having Noah. I know babies are weird, but he was always very focused on eating and never distracted by anything else. There wasn't much going on in that little tiny brain yet.
Mm-hmm.
In the middle of the night, I'm nursing him. And he is very food driven and oriented. So he was not about to, he wasn't about to like rip himself off of my boob until he was like nursed to being conked out. All of a sudden he rips his head up and he stares into this one corner and he's staring like person height. And he like looks at me and then he keeps looking back at this like one corner. And then he just literally stops and stares for like 10 minutes. It was like someone was talking to him. And then he eventually went back and continued. And it was so bizarre.
Do you think that's connected to your uncle?
Well, maybe. Initially, I thought this was my grandpa on my dad's side because my grandpa Bob, he would visit other people. Like there's many people in my family, like kids that are now grown up, that when they were younger had like an imaginary friend or someone who would come visit them. And my grandpa had died when he was in his 40s. So none of us had met him.
Yeah.
And people kind of put 2 and 2 together once the kids like saw a photo of him and was like, oh my gosh, that's
him.
That's the guy that visits me. So I was thinking that it was this man.
Okay.
And I thought that for the next few weeks because every night I would hear walking up and down the hallway. I would hear it was like never in the room. It was so weird. It was like always right before Noah would wake up to eat. I would hear walking down the hallway, or I'd hear while I was nursing him in his room with the door closed, I'd hear someone walk and stand right in front of the door. Like someone was
in front of your door
on me. No, in front of Noah's door. I would hear walking up and down the hallway to come to my door, and right before he'd wake up. When he woke up and I'd go into the nursery, I'd hear someone standing outside of his door. So
that
it was like
feels
someone patrolling.
Protective and
it
feels
does.
very.
I felt good about it.
Yeah.
I was like, this is great. I'm having such a hard time with this and sleep deprivation and postpartum depression and anxiety. It's kind of nice to think that I have an ancestor kind of like
watching
out
out
with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Noah would also kind of like react to someone, and only in his nursery will he start cooing and laughing and giggling.
That's so cute.
And interacting with someone when he's on the changing table. If he's down here or if you change him anywhere else, it doesn't happen. Just in that room. And I've like looked up because I'm like, is there like something on the ceiling that like looks like a face? Like I couldn't figure it out.
Is there anything in that room that belongs to family at all?
Well, the dresser is just mine from childhood.
Okay.
No, I guess no. Not really. I mean,
I wonder why just that
it's just
room.
a collection of clothes and gifts that people
Sure. So maybe there is just like all
good
this
energy,
family protective energy. Yeah.
Yeah. I have no clue. But he's very interactive. Stuff is still happening. In the past couple of weeks, like there's been multiple times where I've felt really tired at night. And one time I thought to myself, oh my God, I'm going to fall asleep. I need to get up right now. And as soon as I said that, a light that I have that's on a dimmer switch, a task light that's next to the nursing chair, which I don't have on at night. I just have another lamp on the other side, turned on. So it was like someone was like, don't fall asleep. And then
which seems like a pattern. Don't fall asleep or don't go back to bed or wake up.
Totally.
Yeah.
And then the other day when I just walked in the middle of the night, it got turned on. Like before I was even in the nursing chair. So helpful.
I love this.
And then my mom was theorizing that maybe Wrinkles paid us a visit.
What if it is Wrinkles?
Because it could be a whole host of people. But Wrinkles were thinking, because the other night, or at this point, it was like maybe 5 or 6 weeks ago, I was so tired and I was like, Noah was starting to make some kind of like stirring a little bit. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to wait and see if he goes back to sleep. Like, I'll give it 5 minutes, like hoping. And I'm turned away, or I was facing Noah, and then I started to turn away from him. And the second I turned away, I feel pressure on the bed. Like at first I felt like it was someone's hand pressing right on the side of me, and I'm awake. And I was like, that's so weird that Noah can reach up and out of his bassinet and like
his really long arms that he has
press down on the bed. And I was like, that's so weird. And then it clicks in my head and I was like, oh my God, this is something paranormal. And I'm still waiting, because at this point I'm also like trying to think of what's happening behind me.
Right.
And the pressing gets more intense, but this time it's multiple. It seemed like an animal, because it felt like someone was walking on the bed next to me.
Aww.
And so I told my mom that, and she was like, I bet it was wrinkles.
That's so sweet.
Yeah, very sweet. So some of the stuff that happened was very sweet. However, there has been some stuff that has not been so sweet.
It's going to take a turn.
Yeah. Brian had his first encounter.
I was going to ask what Brian thinks about all of this.
Maybe this one isn't so bad. And we just talked about how like people can leave a stain somewhere.
Yeah.
But Brian texted me a few days ago and he said, I'm hearing things. And I was out on a walk with Noah in a stroller. We were on the complete other side of the neighborhood. I said, what do you mean? Ghost things? Because I was like, oh my God.
Is it finally happening?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, I keep hearing Noah crying. But we were out of the house. And I was like, maybe it's kind of like an iPhone thing where you think you feel like a phantom buzz because you're just like used to your phone buzzing. But he's like, yeah, it's so weird. I keep hearing him crying. And that was the only time it's ever happened.
Interesting.
And
that
then,
could be residual too.
Yeah. But then a few weeks ago, my mom is here helping us. And it's 10 p.m. It's not even that late. Brian just went to bed and he's on his laptop. My mom just walked into her room and I have just finished feeding Noah and I'm about to put him back into bed. Noah and I are just like there. And I hear Brian go, my love, and then say something else. And so I was like, oh, shoot. And Noah's awake. So I was like, Daddy's calling for us. And so I walk down the hallway and I go into our room and I'm like, yes, what did you say? And he goes, what do you mean? I didn't say anything. But I specifically heard Brian's voice call out to me.
That also could be residual.
Potentially. That night, something I didn't know until recently when I told my mom another thing that happened was my mom went to sleep and she had sleep paralysis in the guest room. And she woke up and she was completely in the room in the sleep paralysis state. And there was this girl that looked kind of similar to me with long dark hair just standing there over her. Like standing on the side of the bed.
Was she younger than you or your age? Like, was it you?
I think it was similar to my age, but it wasn't me. But my mom said that she was just really like kind of freaked out by it and thinking about it. And the only reason she came out of the sleep paralysis was because in the middle of the night, I busted the door open. I was like, Mom, I need help. Because I was struggling a bit with like breastfeeding Noah and he was squirming and getting him into positions.
So she felt negative energy from it?
She felt negative energy. She didn't tell me this until a couple of weeks ago. The only reason she told me this was because I was talking to my neighbor and he goes, oh yeah, I was out checking my peach tree and there's a possum eating my peaches. And I found the possum eating my peaches. He shows me the picture and it's nighttime. And I was like, oh my God, what time did you go out there? And he goes, oh, I was out there at 11 o'clock at night. And he goes, I'm surprised you didn't see me. I looked over and I saw you standing in your kitchen.
And you weren't?
I do not go downstairs after like 8 p.m.
Ever?
No, not unless Brian's accompanying me.
Like you didn't need to get anything for Noah or anything?
No, I've never come down. Never, ever come down. So I told my mom that and she was like,
and it was
someone
you
who looked like you in a sleep paralysis state. So I'm like, okay, something could be mimicking Noah's cry, mimicking Brian calling to me, and now appearing to be someone similar in looks to me. And now we have my mom having sleep paralysis witnessing this woman and my neighbor who, why would my neighbor ever suspect that it was a ghost?
Can you tell how hard I'm trying to come up with like a positive spin on this?
Right.
For you?
This is what I told Jerry and Sierra when they were here. I was like, I got to tell you, I think I have a doppelganger situation, but you can't tell Sabrina because I got to tell her on the podcast.
Yeah. Okay. Because the only thing I'm thinking is, and this is something that if you've listened to the podcast, if people have listened to the podcast before, they've heard your Easter revelation where you potentially think you may be haunted by yourself. So I want to believe it's something connected to that. But if your mom had negative vibes, because the timing, if it is something positive, the timing of when your mom had sleep paralysis and saw some version of you, moments later you burst in needing help. So was it this like moment of your energy going to your mom almost before you physically could?
Well, I don't know why I'd be in the kitchen watching Steven and his peaches.
Maybe that's what you wish you were doing, or you've started to astral project and you're just wandering.
Yeah. Well, let me add another layer to this.
Oh, no.
I was talking to another neighbor, a neighbor who was born here, raised here, and now lives in in her parents' house.
Mm-hmm.
So she has been here since this neighborhood was built.
Okay.
And I'm talking to her about Noah, and just she's also kind of like spooky, witchy sort of person. And I was like, yeah, like, you know, energy has shifted. Things have changed. I should probably cleanse the house because Noah's definitely interacting with things, and things have started to happen. And she goes, oh, well, you're very close to where the mansion on the hill used to be. And I was like, wait, what does that mean?
I already love the mansion on the hill, even though I can tell there's some like dark connotation behind it, but I just love the way it sounds.
She said that growing up, she was not allowed to go up towards the mansion on the hill, and she never wanted to because the vibes were so horrible. There was this giant mansion up on a hill that since was ripped down and subdivided, and now there's this neighborhood. But where that exists, she said there's such horrible energy. She hates being up there. She said when she's still to this day, when she's walking her dog around the neighborhood, when they go close to that area, like close to where the driveways are to get to where that specific house used to be, her dog will freak out. She's like, there is something really dark there.
Have you walked over there?
Not specific. I've walked past where she's talking about. I do it every single day, but I've never gone like up into that wooded area because it's someone's property now.
Right.
So I can't do it. But when she was a kid, they would like kind of venture around, and she was like, yeah, there's
like that was like the place where you were dared to go.
Yeah. And she said she had a dream one night that felt kind of sleep paralysis where
I love that.
There was something up on the hill that was trying to call to her and trying to summon her there. And so she was like, I was really freaked out by that area, and you live basically on the backside of the mansion on the hill, so I wouldn't be shocked to hear if it's that way.
That way. Okay.
Yeah. She was like, I wouldn't be shocked to hear if there's darkness kind of like permeating
that pours out.
Yeah. Going through the ground and heading towards your house.
I'm curious if we could do any research about that house, the mansion on the hill.
Oh, I know the name of the people who owned it, so I'm going to try.
Because we should.
She also said that the people who lived in the mansion on the hill only lived in a small section of their mansion because the rest of the house was overrun by ghosts.
I love that. It's terrifying, but I love that so much, especially because it's like, it's not right here, you know?
Yeah.
We can set a boundary, and like your mom did come back.
But it's right there.
But your mom did come back and cleanse with you, right?
No, we haven't had time.
Oh, I thought she came.
No, she has come multiple times
and
asking to cleanse, and we have not had a single second because Noah's going through some stuff and it's been difficult to do.
Okay, well.
She did bring some holy water, and he was dead asleep, and she put just a little bit on his forehead, and he rose from his sleep and went and then passed back out, and we were both looking at each other, and she goes, I think the water just scared him. That's all. I was like, okay.
Yes, it was just the water.
I'm gonna have to rename Noah Damien.
Jeez.
So
okay.
Yeah, there's some stuff that's been going on.
That is why you've set boundaries with me and said no communicating with ghosts in the house. But
like, we cannot do anything.
Demonic things, recording all about the paranormal, totally fine.
Well, I mean, how can I say? Oh, I can't say no to that. That has to be the one thing that I allow slip in.
We have to.
Yeah, but I've been very scared because all that stuff is happening. Well, it's one thing where I was like, I'm scared, but I'm also so tired from just like trying to keep another human alive that I've actually done the thing that you are supposed to do when something potentially demonic is happening.
Ignore it.
I've completely ignored it. I've paid it no mind. Things will happen
you
next
have
to me,
way
and I'm
more
like,
on your priority list.
Yeah, and I just move forward.
Well, that's great.
Yeah,
good job.
I can't think
You're
of
doing
anything else.
Perfect.
Yeah, thank you. And then I told you this and other people on Campfire Stories the other night, but I've been having a really hard time with postpartum depression and anxiety, and I was having just like an especially horrible day. And that night I went to bed and I had a dream that didn't feel like a dream. It felt like a visitation because I was in my body and I was thinking, this is so weird that I'm here and I'm like dreaming right now and people are around me. And I had the conscious train of thought in my dream.
Yeah. It was lucid.
It was lucid.
Yeah.
And my Uncle Dickie was in my dream. And my Uncle Dickie passed away in 2020. He had Parkinson's and there were some complications with being in the hospital and COVID and different things.
Yeah.
But I loved my Uncle Dickie so much. And growing up, we would go over to Jeanette and Dickie's house all the time and we'd go visit them in their house in Florida. And I have a chest that his son gave me as a wedding gift. And this is my great Uncle Dickie. I call him my Uncle Dickie, but he's my great Uncle Dickie. But he used to restore these antique chests. And he and my great Aunt Jeanette also were collectors of like antiquities and had an antique shop and all of that stuff. And so he just always like gifted me these old things. So when he passed, his son gifted me one of these old chests that he had restored when he was alive. And it's like so dear to me. And I have it in the sunroom right next to where I spend a lot of my time.
Yeah.
And I've never, ever dreamt of Uncle Dickie ever. And the other night when I was having a horrible time, he came in and he was in a wheelchair in my dream. And he looked at me and he didn't really say anything yet. And my brother was next to me, but I wasn't like looking at my brother. I just like knew he was next to me. And I started to like lean forward to hug Uncle Dickie. And my brother goes, "Oh, are we allowed to," like basically being like, "Well, are we allowed to hug you?"
Yeah.
And he interrupts and he goes, "Of course you can. I've missed you." And he reaches out and hugs me. And the second we're embraced, I wake up and Noah's like wakes up too.
What if Noah was dreaming about him too?
Maybe.
Or maybe Noah was actually seeing him.
Maybe. I don't know. But I told my mom that. My mom like got teary-eyed and she's like, "Oh
That's
my God."
really, really special.
Yeah. Because we fully believe Uncle Dickie was there.
I fully believe that too.
Yeah.
I also very much believe whatever dark energy might be passing through or bleeding down here from the castle on the hill, it is no match for what you have protecting you and like the positive energy. And I mean, think about Wrinkles alone is a guardian of yours, and Wrinkles alone will defeat any darkness. I know that for a fact, but you have so much support and love around you that
I feel
even
it.
living and deceased, family or past lives, spirit guides, whatever, nothing's going to harm you.
I hope so.
We'll make sure of it.
I don't think anything can. And I think that's also why I haven't been as panicked about cleansing like my mom has been, because I'm like, every night I feel people around me, but like good energy. There's only been a few spooky things where I'm like, but for the most part, I know other people are here and they're trying to help me.
Right. And we also spend our lives doing this podcast talking about paranormal, often some of the dark stuff. So of course you're going to be on guard when something a little bit uncertain happens, which I think is good.
Yeah.
Because then you're aware enough to be like, okay, should I be cleansing or should I be calling upon my loved ones to really like surround me in this positivity?
I also feel very protected just based on our listeners. Like I feel I agree. There were so many people sending me good vibes that I feel like it did kind of create this almost shield, this like force field where there were a few times where I was like, who is this, I wonder? Like whose energy is being projected that we know?
I mean, we literally have had listeners. I can't remember her name, but we had a listener come on Campfire Stories maybe a year ago to tell us about like this haunting that had been following her for her whole life. And we at Campfire Stories were like, let us all take a moment to send energy her way, this protective force from our community. And she said from that night, she has never experienced anything again.
I know the story, but I still get chills every time I hear it because that is so wild. And it's believable. Like it's one of those, and we just talked about this with the Smurl possession where they, I mean, I know it didn't work for them, but they like had a big group of people just constantly trying to come in and have the positive energy. And I feel like we have that.
We do.
Like the whole community can project their energy towards someone and it does work.
It does work. So
and I do feel it.
And there was even like one Campfire Stories where I knew you were having a tough time and I was just like, let's all send healing energy towards Corinne. And I mean, even without me asking, I know that people are doing that for both of us.
Yeah. Which is, thank you guys.
Witches.
We love you.
Witches.
Yeah, witches. We love you for it.
We do love you for it.
I do want to talk for a moment about postpartum.
Yeah, I was going to ask
Depression
if you
and
wanted
anxiety.
to.
Yeah, because it's something that I've really been suffering with. And I
Yeah.
think that it's also something that I was so not prepared to deal with because I'm already going to start crying.
I know.
Because like people, sorry, it's just going to be tears.
It's fine, yeah.
People talk, sorry, before I even talk about this, I just remembered something. Did you know you can be allergic to breastfeeding? And I was and am.
Of course
So
you
literally
are.
everything happened. Like my feet would swell and welt every time I breastfed, and I just kept doing it. And after like 4 weeks, it finally stopped happening. But I'd be like horribly itchy and swollen. Like
so
my
you should
whole
spend
ankles
4
and
weeks
feet.
with Leia, and eventually you'll be
I guess
no
so.
longer allergic to her.
It was horrible. I almost quit breastfeeding over it. I probably should have. But anyway, I feel like everyone talks about postpartum and in that people are like, oh yeah, it's very normal to have postpartum depression. A lot of people have it. People will feel a lot of sadness. You might have trouble bonding with your child, but no one gives you specifics of how you're actually going to feel.
But also everyone's specifics are different.
Yes, but it also made me feel very embarrassed because I felt like my specifics were, like, I'm going to start crying again.
Okay.
Like it felt just like beyond like what I would have considered to be depression. Because I've had anxiety, I've had depression in different bouts and times of my life, and I've gone to therapy for those things. But this felt so much worse. And it started basically like maybe day 3 of after we came home from the hospital. And at first I was like, maybe this is baby blues, because the majority of people get baby blues. It goes away within a couple weeks where you just feel off. Like all of your hormones are kind of like pulsing through you.
Right.
But this just did not go away, and it's still kind of here. But I'm going to give specifics because I don't want other people to experience it and then feel embarrassed.
Yeah.
And I also just want to say, in case Noah's listening to this in the future, like it has absolutely nothing to do with him and everything to do with just like the chemicals in my brain.
Yeah.
So there's nothing he did at all that could have changed this or prevented it or anything. But I think the first thing that happened was like my postpartum anxiety. And it was, I also have OCD, so that doesn't help to like add another layer onto it. But I did not sleep for weeks because I would sit and stare into his bassinet to see if he was breathing. And I know a lot of parents have that fear. And so people do that all the time. But it was like obsessive. And I was so scared. And I told my doctor, because I got flagged pretty quick for she flagged me. She saw. I thought I was,
which is great. I'm glad that that
and
she was able to see it.
Completely honest in the questionnaire. I
of
thought
course,
I was like
you were trying to play
really
it cool.
lightly, and she was like, "We're flagging
the fact
you."
that you were trying to do it lightly, and she was just like,
red flag, red flag.
Yeah,
and then she made me come in every week, which was good.
Which is good.
That's very good. That she was like, "I'll see you next week. You're not coming in 4 weeks. You're coming in every single week until I feel like you're okay."
Yeah.
So I told my doctor, I was like, it was this thing where anytime Brian left, I would be so scared that Brian would die. It was like this thing that was just like consuming me. I was like, Brian's gonna die or Noah's gonna die. And every time I would like move Noah, I would be so scared that his neck would snap. Like there were just these horrible intrusive thoughts. And it wasn't intrusive as in like that you think you're gonna harm your child. It's that you think your child's going to be harmed.
Yeah.
I would swing from these crazy anxious moments into deep depression, and I had no in between. And the depression was basically like I could look at Noah crying and like just be completely checked out and blank face and not feel anything. Or I would think like, what if I just walk away and I just leave for a week and just come back? Or like he would be so much better off if I wasn't his mom. He wouldn't be crying if he had a different mom.
I'm sorry.
Like, things like that. And it was just really...
Those are really hard thoughts to have. And to have them and be like, why am I thinking this? And then get even worse to yourself and be mean to yourself.
And then every single day at 4 p.m., I would just feel like I was going to vomit because I'd be so anxious that night was coming and that it would just be me and Noah alone because I was breastfeeding him. So it's not like Brian could help. And there were many times that Brian ended up just sitting with me and getting up and just like sitting to be with us. But oh my God, it was just like so horrible. And
I'm sorry.
Just like some of the thoughts that you have are just like, you feel really disgusted with yourself. And also people would text me and they're like, are you so in love? Are you so happy? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't think this baby even likes me.
No.
He smiled a lot at Brian and he didn't smile at me, but also because I was so anxious that I spent every single moment looking at him like this. Like, are you breathing? Are you okay? Like,
Yeah.
I never smiled at him for like a month because I was just struggling so much. And then he's gone through his own, Noah's gone through his own issues with
so many different things. Yeah.
so many different things. And we've had a lot of doctor visits and stuff. And I was fine for like 4 weeks. And then it just all came full force. And it's horrible because I'm trying so hard not to cry in front of him. But there was one time, and I told you about this, but I'm like also embarrassed by it, that I just couldn't keep it in me. And I just started sobbing. And Noah had been crying and he was like on my shoulder and he just stopped crying and he propped himself up on me. And he like literally tried to balance, like he's wobbling and he's trying to balance and like reach out and like touch my face. And I was like,
he loves you.
I know, but it made me so sad. So I was like, I don't want him to feel like he has to comfort me. He's the baby. I have to comfort him.
I know.
But
But you're human. And I think that's part of raising a child is showing them that it's okay to have emotions. And
oh God,
I'm really sorry that you have gone through this and you are experiencing all of this. It's so incredibly hard. And like, it's also, you are not good at asking for help. And I think this has forced you to reach out to people in a way that will probably leave like you with really positive outcomes coming out of this. But
it did make me realize too the importance of having the right partner, because I feel terrible for Brian, but there have probably half the time that Noah's been alive, he's had to fully take care of me and Noah. And he hasn't, like, he's been so good at it, but I'm sure he went through his own thing with transitioning into being a dad, and our lives been completely different. And he didn't really have time to process it because he had to fully take care of me and our baby. And I was just thinking, oh my God, I like can't even imagine doing this alone. I can't imagine doing this for the partner who like didn't fully support me, or this child, or that I didn't trust fully. Like,
I mean, that's
thank
beautiful.
God I have Brian. Oh, another thing with postpartum anxiety that was so crippling was I couldn't stop crying, not only just for like the things that I was experiencing, but I couldn't stop thinking about all the babies and the moms in the world that were not in safe situations.
I know.
Like, I still think about it all the time.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like you're going to think about that forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it doesn't help all the things that are going on in the world that are just so incredibly
So
atrocious,
devastating.
and that we're, you know, we see it, we hear it, and I just can't stop thinking about those babies.
I know.
It hurts.
It does.
It hurts a lot. But 1 in 7 women experience postpartum depression.
Yeah.
So you're not alone. And I feel like I gave like very light examples of some of the things that I experienced and thought, but feel free, if you're experiencing something, to DM me on Instagram, because whatever crazy thing or embarrassing thing you're thinking or feeling, I probably felt it too.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not alone.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, I'm not going to say names, but we have a friend who has a child and experienced postpartum like years later.
Oh.
And also similarly, she felt so embarrassed and felt like something was wrong with her. And people don't talk about a delayed postpartum, but it does happen. I mean, motherhood is so, I mean, I can't speak from experience, obviously, but like, you are putting something else and someone else before you. And that's already so difficult and so like such a tremendous amount of giving that is going on, that I hope you know you are doing an incredible job, and you are, there's nothing wrong with you. You are an amazing mother.
It's just everything, to your point, all at once. Like, you're trying to fully protect this person and you lose yourself, and you also have to grieve. Like, I guess this was another thought I had that I was embarrassed by. There were times when I was like, we ruined our lives. Because I was like, we're never going to get to go out to dinner again. We're never going to get to be like the couple that we were. Like, I'm not the same person. You have to grieve yourself.
Yeah. It's such a
grieve
change.
Your relationship with everyone that you've ever had, because it's always going to be a little bit different.
But in a beautiful way.
Yeah. It doesn't feel like that in the moment.
I know. But I think with time it will come.
But in my mind, I was like, that was very embarrassing to think like, oh my God, I ruined my life. I shouldn't have had a child. And then I swing, and then I'm like, when can I get pregnant again? When is my C-section going to be? Like, if they said 1 year, like, it's crazy, these swings.
I know.
It's exhausting, too, because you can't keep up with your own brain on top of everything else.
Yeah. Well, I love you. You're doing such an incredible job. And
thank you to Sabrina for, I was supposed to be on maternity leave for 3 months, and it's basically going to end up being like 6 months, because I can't do anything. I can't remember anything. So
I know.
Sabrina,
I'm
show
like,
up to
don't worry.
record,
I will be your calendar. I will be.
Yeah. I put shit on the bookshelf. And that
you
was
did.
my job.
You did.
Yeah.
You know, I went through trauma treatment and you took on more of the work then. And like,
yeah, we
swap there for each other.
Need.
Yeah. And I think that's, you know, that goes for so many people in your life. You have such a beautiful support system, including our community, and people love you. And even when it's hard for you to love yourself or for you to see everything clearly, other people will be there. I will be there. I will continuously remind you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And now I live here, so you have to deal with me.
That's true. But I do want to put in the show notes, we'll link some support sites for people if you're suffering from depression, anxiety. We'll have some resources for you there. It's especially important if you are in the postpartum depression phase of life to seek help, because suicide is the number 2 reason that people end their lives postpartum. And out of that number of people who do that, the large majority of them had never seen a therapist or sought help within the past month before that happens.
Thank you for talking about it, because that's part of what I think helps other people.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of our listeners are entering a very similar phase in their life as you are, or might be going through it and haven't been able to feel safe talking about it. So thank you.
And also it helps to just ask. I know it's so hard to ask for help, but like it took me how long to ask for help when I told Brian, like, I'm suffering. And he went and he found me a therapist.
Yeah.
And he booked it. And he did everything. So call your friend. Tell a coworker.
Also, if you are a friend of someone who has recently had a child, or is even just reach out to your loved ones just generally and tell them that you're there for them.
Yeah. And if they don't respond, just
keep
text
doing
them
it
again.
It doesn't have
to. They don't have to respond, because also I don't respond to people for like 7 days because I just don't have time.
Yeah.
But
I like that it's 7 days.
7 days. I only respond if you text me within the 10-minute span that I'm actively pumping.
Yeah, right.
And then otherwise you have to wait 7 days for me to open your text if I ever do.
Just hug your loved ones, remind them all that you love them, and just know no matter what in life, you are not alone and there is support for you. And we're here for you. We love you. We all love you, Corinne.
Thanks.
You're incredible.
And I love everyone else. I don't want to scare anybody away from having a child, but and it's the one other thing, and this is the last thing I'll say, is I think that if you are starting to be honest with people about how you're feeling, you will be shocked at how many people start to tell you stories, because that was the thing that I experienced over Instagram direct messages with other people that were moms, or even just walking my neighborhood.
Yeah.
Every time someone said, "How are you?" I said, "I'm alive."
Yeah.
And immediately, because I didn't say, "Oh, we're good,"
which is what everyone wants to say that. Even like if you don't have a child, even if you're not experiencing postpartum, like any type of ailment or issue in life, I feel like we are taught to like just be like, "Oh, everything's well,
fine.
just dandy,
we'll survive."
Right?
No, I was like, "I'm alive. I'm awake." And immediately, the number of people that were like, "Oh my God, I had postpartum depression. Are you experiencing that?" Yeah. It was crazy.
It's way more common.
It's so common.
Yeah.
People don't talk about it. Or they just say, "Oh, I had postpartum depression," and they don't want to revisit it because it is very painful.
And it's also probably really hard when there are other people in your life who are having kids and aren't experiencing it and are experiencing this bliss and like
which
easy
one of my very best friends
had
a baby 1 month after me, and our experiences are
so different.
Yeah. She is baby bliss, over the moon, heart full of love, immediately bonded. Yeah. Everything is perfect. Rainbows, butterflies.
But that's not always the reality. And yeah, I love you. Thank you for sharing that.
So I've been battling the past few months, but now we have a new recording. We have comfy chairs.
We do have comfy chairs. I mean, if you saw our aura reading at House Witch with Kaylin, it was wild how your aura has changed.
My aura was basically like fight or flight.
Yeah. Survive. Yeah.
And I knew it. Well, I was suspecting that if it wasn't, I would have started to believe a little bit less in aura readings.
I mean, that makes me believe in aura readings even more. Wait, we should frame our aura photography. You have them, right?
I do. Here, hold on. Okay, I'm going to show our auras.
Okay.
Well, just to give everyone an example, this is what I used to be and what I always was.
That was, what, 3 years ago almost?
Yeah. And anyone I ever encountered who said that they could read auras told me I was purple. This is Sabrina. She's pretty much always been this, except she became super psychic with that white halo. This was the other day.
Mm-hmm.
This is me now. Whoops. But you've also experienced some hauntings that I haven't heard of. And I got glimpses of it here and there because I was seeing what you were sharing on social media, but you didn't.
Yeah.
You saved a lot of.
I haven't told you all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So where do I begin? I don't have as many as you. I mean, and they're all pretty streamlined. So,
but you were also experiencing a lot before too, and you had shared those things.
Yes.
You had the faucet that would go off.
Okay, so I'll just so as context, I moved into a house built in 1767 in Marblehead, which is a very haunted little place. And the previous owners had told us that there were some hauntings. The two things that she had told us was that occasionally you'll see something out of the corner of your eye, and then there's one faucet that will turn off or on randomly. And they had a plumber come and look at the pipes, and there was nothing wrong with it. They're like, we can't explain it. I have experienced a couple of things, and most of it has been electronics turning on and doing weird things. Mm-hmm. And then it was aggravated after talking about the Smurl possession. Yes. Yay, shout out to the Smurls. And then we find pennies everywhere.
Are they facing up, like heads up or
different?
Tails? Is it
different. They're different, but they are in the most random places. Like there was
it's not like you
one
have a bunch
in a
of
closet.
Pennies.
No, I have 0 pennies.
Right.
There was one in a closet.
We live in an Apple Pay era.
Yeah. There's some in the garden. And then I found one in a purse. And then there was another on the bathroom counter.
What the heck?
But I was talking about this
so cool.
on Campfire Stories, and everyone said it's really positive, and that's like almost a gift from the spirits. Mm. And I have always felt positive energy from the house, except for the basement.
Oh. Wait, before you go to the basement, can I pitch something to you?
Sure.
The ghosts are giving you pennies as a gift. Pennies are shiny. Can you give that as a gift to your neighborhood crows and ravens? And then maybe...
Oh.
And then the crows and ravens will give it back as a gift, and the ghosts will take it, and then you create this little cycle.
I mean, maybe.
Of gift giving.
I haven't seen any crows and ravens, though.
Well, maybe if you put a shiny penny outside.
Maybe they'll come flocking. Our house is the pigeon house because of Aunt Polly. There's actually, there's a lot of pigeon stuff that's been happening. So
what?
In one of the articles that I found about the history of the house, there was a woman named Polly who lived on the 2nd floor, and they called her Aunt Polly because I think she was the aunt of the owner of the house. Mm. At this time, there were 6 different families living in the house, and she lived on the 2nd floor with hundreds of pigeons that she raised and then sold.
That is so cool.
And occasionally, we have pigeons around the house all the time. But when we first moved in, these 2 pigeons kept sitting on the window box looking into the living room. And it was weird. We were like, that's weird that these birds keep coming. Didn't really think much of it. And then I was coming home one day, and we have a camera at the back door. And I was just picking up packages, minding my own business. And all of a sudden, and I have a video of it, these 2 pigeons just fly over my head. Like they were making a nest in the corner of the back door.
Oh, and sweet little pigeon nests. They're so sad.
I know. And
little twigs.
These pigeons just hang out in the backyard and like are always there. And I say hi to them and welcome them to the house.
I need a pigeon expert to weigh in because I'm wondering if pigeons have this sort of memory that's passed down.
I think I don't know about memory, but I mean, carrier pigeons, like people use them to deliver things. So I think they have like some type of connection to a place.
The ancestors
or
of
is it
these
Polly?
Pigeons, were they Polly's pigeons?
Right.
Or is Polly
or
still
is Polly
pigeon
here as a pigeon?
In spectral form? Oh, or is she here as a pigeon? Okay.
Many options.
So many options when it comes to the paranormal. Or is Polly a pigeon? Okay.
That would be a great reincarnation.
Yeah, that would. I mean, it seems like that's something that she would want.
Yeah.
You got to start feeding the pigeons.
I do.
Wait.
What?
Let's train them and then let's send messages. Screw text messages.
You'll actually answer to my carrier pigeon?
100%.
I'll probably get them as fast as I get text responses. Because you live so close.
Faster. You will get them so much faster. Oh my gosh. I want to try.
We
With
probably
all the
won't
free time
do that.
we have to train the pigeons.
I'll say right now, we probably won't do that.
But if we do, you'll be sure to hear it.
You'll be the first to know. And then
The basement, you said.
Oh, the basement. Okay. So I've talked about Chris on Campfire Stories and also I think on one of the live streams I've done. I will link all of Chris's information and Instagram because Chris does readings. And also Chris is an artist who made me that really cool. Did I show you this?
No.
She made me this like beautiful little altar frame. Yeah.
What the heck?
We should have her make one for here.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's sick.
But I walked into the store in Salem and got a reading randomly with Chris. And everything was spot on to the point where I texted Chris afterwards and I was like, hey, will you come do a reading of my house? Because we had just moved in. And so Chris came over in the afternoon and was just reading the energy of the house and of me and of pain and just like seeing what was up. We were sitting outside doing this. So she hadn't even walked through the house. And she goes,
were you in the backyard by the body mound?
We were in the backyard, kind of by the body mound. And Chris goes, your house has really, really good energy. And she's like, sometimes it feels a little bit more masculine, but then I feel like you are bringing a much more feminine energy into the house. And I have been connecting very much with my mother's side and my ancestry on that side. And I have photos of them like in the house and I really call upon them. And she goes, there's just one weird energy that I'm getting and it feels like it's coming from like a rocky corner in your basement. My basement is not finished, but they did like concrete on the floors and then you can see the exposed rock in certain areas. There's one corner that you see the exposed rock of the foundation of the house because the house is literally built into rock. And I will say, prior to Chris even saying this, that corner has always given me the heebie-jeebies. Sure enough, we go down towards the basement after she said this, and she was like, this is the corner. And it's some weird energy. And she's like, it's not negative, but there's something weird. And
it's so wild, too, how specific it was to the actual layout of the...
Yeah. And prior to Chris, and like right when we had first moved in, that corner is like right below the back door mudroom and like entryway. I had hung dried baby's breath at that back door. Every time I would come back there, it would be ripped off of where I had hung it and on the ground. Every time. And I was like, that's so weird. And it happened like 6 times. Then I hung my little like witch's broom or broom by the door and it stopped falling.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I was like, is there something that's in the basement that doesn't like that energy being brought here? Anyway, so then as Chris is doing the reading of the whole house, she said there's one room, actually the guest room. So if you're a guest at our house, it has the best energy in the house.
Well, that's good.
And it's all of my stuff that I brought with me from LA and Santa Monica, which makes me think that
your
like my healing era stuff that I bought has kept its good positive energy and has brought that
from when
energy
you lived on
here.
the commune.
The compound, the courtyard.
The courtyard.
And then the room that is above the rocks has like a weird energy. And you can even feel a temperature difference.
Really?
Yeah. So we did a little like protective stuff in that area. So Chris does her reading. That's kind of like the biggest takeaway. I was like that one weird energy, but otherwise everything's positive. So while you're on maternity leave, I was like, I'm going to talk to the dead. I'm going to embrace this. I'm going to open my third eye. I'm going to get in touch with my psychic abilities, get in touch with my ancestors, yada, yada, yada. I do one live stream from the basement. And it was middle of the day. I set up like candles down there. It's dark down there. You can watch the live stream. We'll link it in the YouTube video here. But I spend like the first 10 minutes just talking about the basement, about the house, talking about what Chris said. And I'm sitting with that corner with the rock behind me.
Yeah.
And I kept saying like right behind me, like I was like, maybe I shouldn't sit with my back to it. But I was like, whatever. I'd actually rather not look into that corner because I don't want to acknowledge it. So I set all of that up. And then I turn on GhostTube, which is an app we use and have used at the Lizzie Borden house, at the SK Pierce house, and in live streams that we've done. And it has always been so accurate.
Yeah.
And the second I turned it on, do you want to know what the first thing it said was? Behind you.
Which it's like, is that something saying I'm behind you, or is that something else warning you that there's something behind you?
Based on the conversations that followed, it made me think it was the thing that is behind me. And it was like, yeah, you were just talking about me and I am here.
Oh my God, Sabrina, have you gone back down there since?
Not to like speak to the dead.
Oh, okay. You're not there every night at midnight?
No, God, no. After that, I was, because also as that was ending, it was basically every time I've done a live stream, as I'm ending, the spirits are like, please leave.
That's wild.
So I'm like, I hear you. I'm going to leave.
It's like when we were at the Lizzie Borden house and they were like,
Yeah.
all right, time to go. And they like turned on all the lights in the
Right,
house.
the
and they were
energy
like, you guys
changed.
leave.
Once we were like,
Scurry
okay, we're
on.
leaving.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the last thing I'll say, and this again reaffirms my belief in GhostTube, I had it on during Campfire Stories one night because I was just like, I'll have it on as I was talking about the pennies and finding stuff in the house. And it kept saying Nathaniel. And I was like, who's Nathaniel? Anyone have a relative named Nathaniel? And then the next day I'm in the shower and epiphany, like light bulb moment. The house is literally built for a Nathaniel. His name is on the plaque outside of the house.
Oh, I just got so many chills.
Yeah.
This is the most magical thing about having a house that's that old.
I know.
And knowing the history of it too.
Mhm.
Because you did a whole episode too where you like looked into all of the history of your house.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Everybody's coming out and saying hi.
Everyone's coming out. There is one weird thing that one of the beams in the living room has almost as if someone was counting down the days. It has like tallies. Has 8 tallies scratched into the beams.
Oh.
And then the only thing I could think of is, read the writing on the wall comes from people used to write on the wall. And I think it comes from specifically construction. I might be wrong about that. But people used to write notes on like when you're building a house, they would write like little things on the wood boards.
Yeah.
So I was like, maybe it's that, but it's on a ceiling. I don't really know.
It's worth an email to, I think it's the Salem Historical Society. There's this one guy that works there. He's also on Farmhouse Fixer all the time because he goes in and he knows all the history of like the things that they used to do. And he's looked at wood carvings and markings that have been odd in various homes that they've worked in.
Yeah.
It's maybe worth just sending an email and being like
what's
is
this
of any
Right.
significance or is this some random
Is
thing?
it commonplace that people did this? Yeah, I don't know. Interesting. Anyway, so we'll stay tuned on that. But otherwise, it's really just been electrical things like the TV turning on by itself and all of a sudden being at full volume while I'm alone, and it scares me. But otherwise, I've felt very positive energy. I've also, our listener, and I'm sorry I'm blanking on your name, I have the note with the pendulum, but Daniel is the spirit attached to that pendulum. Remember our listener sent a haunted pendulum. Daniel and I are best friends. I love Daniel so much. I've been using the pendulum every time I do any communication with the spirits. And I feel like Daniel has Sven energy to me where it's like this like playful spirit who's on our side but teases us, a little bit.
You just made me have an idea. And I feel like we should get little stands for our pendulums. And every time we record, you can bring Daniel and your pendulum with you. And we'll just hang each of our pendulums behind us. And so that they can communicate if they need to.
I love that.
Okay, we'll figure it out.
I also learned that apparently putting your other hand underneath the pendulum helps with like energy.
Oh.
And especially your energy.
Yeah, to kind of ground it.
Yeah. But
interesting.
That's a great idea.
Let's do it.
I'm ordering, after this, we'll order pendulum stands and we'll put them up.
Perfect.
But I think that's most of my hauntings. They've been pretty small.
Dang. I don't think that's very small at all.
I guess
But I've been
I'm inviting
casually chatting with the dead.
Yeah, casually chatting with the dead.
You're literally communicating with them.
Yeah.
It's beyond just like, oh, there's a faucet that turns on. Like there's communication, there's words, there's other people involved coming and telling you. Yeah. I guess I kind of had the same thing with the neighbor being like, oh yeah, you live near the haunting. But
you're not actively trying to communicate with the dead. I am. And now I'm making you.
Here's the lesson of paranormal. It doesn't matter if you try to engage with them or not. It will find you.
If it wants to.
If it wants to.
And it does find a lot of you and a lot of us. And we are somewhat, most of the time, grateful for it.
Yes.
And we're grateful for all of you. And if you have any hauntings that you would like to share with us, please email them to us at 2girls1ghostpodcast@gmail.com. And join us on Patreon for Campfire Stories, which is live every Tuesday night. You can come share your ghost stories with us live. We also have episodes ad-free and 1 week early on Patreon, and we do bonus episodes every month. So many cool things over there.
Yeah.
Book club.
So head on over, check it out, and we'll see you here twice a week. Otherwise,
thank you to our editor, Jamie, for editing and producing this podcast. We are so grateful for you, and we're so grateful for all of you.
And we will see you on the other side.